Who do I have in front of me at home?
I'm Dan O'Flaherty, former teacher here in Taghmon, retired for the last 15 years. And I've been involved with a few bits and pieces. I'm very involved with the Family Resource Centre here in Taghmon. And I'm involved with, I'm still on the Board of Management of the National School. And that's about it for a man of my age.
So come here to me. Today we're at the 1st of February. It's the start of spring.
Yeah.
And there is a bit of a spring in the air.
Absolutely.
There's been a huge weight lifted off our shoulders, I think.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It is hopefully like we're over the worst. Like, even though the month of January now has been a fantastic month, it's probably as good a month as I've ever witnessed or been alive during. It's as good a month weather-wise, but there's always that feeling in the back of your mind that something was going to happen that we hadn't avoided. Like at home now, none of us got COVID at home, but we were always being careful, and we're still saying to ourselves, look, even though the month of January passed by and all the restrictions have been basically lifted, but we have said to ourselves we still have to be careful, because we know the problems caused by, we've heard of a lot of the problems caused by this COVID to people that we knew and things like that, you know.
So it's been a tough and a strange 2 years then.
It has been a very strange 2 years. I can go back to the 10th of March, and myself and Noreen, my wife, we were in Belfast for a couple of days, and we came back down to Dublin where my grandchildren live, and we picked them up from school, which did nearly every Wednesday, and we picked them up that day, brought them home, and we came down home here to Wexford ourselves. And on the Friday, I think it was the Friday, the next Friday, the 10th, 11th, 12th, the 12th, that the announcement was made that all these restrictions were being in place. And thinking back now, that was the last time we did it every week since they started going to school. We collected them on a Wednesday. And now, I didn't go every Wednesday, but Nolan went every Wednesday. I went every second Wednesday, and we brought them home, and we had a bit of time with them. But the last 2 years, when we weren't able to collect them or meet them or whatever it was, it was a very, very it was an upsetting time. It was a lonely time. Like, we really missed them. And the fact is now that the eldest chap has gone on to secondary school, so we won't get that chance again. We'll never get back to the chance of picking him up from school. Whereas the young man, that was Matt, and then Jack is okay. Jack is only in 5th class, so hopefully we'll get a chance, to continue the way we were with him. But the grandchildren were a big part of our life, and COVID really put a stop to I don't know what's the word I'd use. But we were very attached to them, and we loved going up on a Wednesday. But that ended with COVID, unfortunately.
And you think back to March to June 2020, were you in that age bracket where you were locked? I
was, as they said, cocooned. And like the president, I didn't like the word being cocooned. And we were confined to, was it 2 kilometres from home or whatever it is. What I did for that we're looking to, in a sense, you're looking to really be out of the country, because you're able to go for your walk and you won't run into anybody or whatever it was. So we walked every day, myself and Nolan, we walked every day. There was a kind of at the back on the back roads, we were able to walk down there. You might run into the odd neighbour and you'd have a quick word, and that's it, but we didn't stop, you wouldn't stop and talk the way we used to, which again was a kind of, we'd meet people on the road and you'd stop and you'd talk. And as a matter of fact, there's one of those chaps that we often met on the road while we were out there walking. He passed away there last week. Last week he passed away, but he'd been in hospital since before Christmas. But we met him nearly every day when we were out walking, and he'd just say hello, and we'd pass on. And but before that, you'd stop and you could talk for 10, 15 minutes. Your walk wouldn't be, very often the walk wouldn't have been as important as the chat. And it was very important during COVID, like to see the people, even if you didn't talk to them. at least to be there, and you know that they're still around. It was important, like to missing people, that was a big part of it. Mixing with people for those, whatever it was, 6 months, whether it was the first from March to June anyway, and like going home, like when I'm saying going home, it means I'm going back down to Kerry for a while. And that was a huge loss to me. I didn't get to Kerry for, I don't know. Normally I used to go down there about once a month or whatever it was. And I'd say when COVID came, I've only been down twice since. That's all. I've only been down twice. And I used to go 6 weeks would be max, I wouldn't be home, And I miss that. I miss going to Kerry.
Did it make you reflect on the things you took for granted?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We took our freedoms, the freedoms that we had. We never thought about those. Never thought about hopping into the car and going. But you were really restricted. That cocooning for the first 6 months was terrible. Like, we were, in a sense, I suppose we were looking at, we had company in the house, that our eldest son was working from home. And that, we had that company in the house as well. But he was restricted in what he could do. There was not, I played a good bit of golf in my time. Like, that was out of action, that was gone. And we met every Tuesday morning and Saturday morning. We were all retired, and we met, and the golf was beside the point really. We went in after, and we had a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, and chatted, and that was a big loss, like during the early parts of COVID. So that was a big loss, and I missed that. I missed going to the old games. Like I'd be a supporter of Wexford hurling and Kerry football, and I missed all the old games. I missed going to the games big time, because there'd be a passion of mine, football and hurling, and I missed those big time for the 2 years. It was great to be able to get back again on last Sunday when I was up in Newbridge for the Kerry match. And so, the people that were talking about it up there, they were so delighted to be back into action, to live action, It must have been a terrible feeling for players to play into an empty stadium, for All Ireland final, whatever it was, because the track that we had in Newbridge last Sunday was just out of this world. I missed that. And I'd say an awful lot of the people that were out, and they were Kildare people, Kerry people around us there, and they were all saying the very same thing. But that was it.
We're a social animal.
Big time, absolutely. Even if the couple of pints before the match, like we went in. I was driving, so I wasn't having a pint, but the lads went in. There 2 pints before the match, but the place was strong. The bar was strong. It's only 2 minutes walk from the stadium in Newbridge, and the people in there were, it was amazing. From the first time I sat up at a counter for 2 years, to the second time, the second time I was in a pub in that 2 year period, and I sat up at the counter and having a glass of orange. And it was better than, It was the same, like I have, a lot of my family have emigrated over the years, and they were in New York, and my sister's husband died in New York during the COVID, and we weren't able to get over to the funeral. My young lad is in Sydney, and he was out of work for his works as a chef, and the place was closed down for 12 weeks. And like he would, it was tough on him. It was tough, And the thing is, they're so far away from home that there's nothing you can do basically for them. So that was a big, there's a certain amount of loneliness that you would feel like during those COVID times. The fact that I don't know whether I'm putting this right or not, but there was a loneliness I felt about the whole COVID period, because I couldn't meet people. My own family were, as I said, they've emigrated. I have a sister still living in New York. I would have been going over to visit her. And things like that, you know. But sure, we got over it.
Yeah, even the things around a funeral then.
Yeah.
That completely changed.
Oh, that's completely changed. Like, you know, the fact even going to meet the people, you know, just to shake hands with somebody, to call to the house or to call into the funeral home or whatever it was, like, you just couldn't do that. I know what they did at home was, you know, they, if anybody died in the village, when the hearse was leaving the village, the locals just lined the side of the road there as they passed on. But those funerals would have been big funerals if times were right, you know. That would be pretty good. Because the people there, like, it was a shame. I missed 1, 2, 3 funerals of people that were in school with me. And we'd have been very good friends. One man I used to have a pint with every Sunday night. I'd be down at home, and he passed away, and I wasn't able to get to his funeral. And he was the man I always liked to talk to on a Sunday night, because he had a fantastic grasp of football and hurling. As a matter of fact, he was such a good analyst. We kind of called him Colm O'Rourke. He was known as Colm O'Rourke when he came into the pub on a Sunday night. And he was absolutely brilliant. But sure, look, that's life. We had to put up with those things. I missed my own brother-in-law's funeral, as I said. And these are things that we'll never get a chance to go back on. Like, there are things in life that that if happens you can go back again. But with death you just don't get back. It's final. And that was a big thing. Like, I'd say a lot of people suffered because of the way the funerals had to be dealt with. Suffered, I suppose, from a kind of a mental anguish, you might call it, but, you know, it was pretty severe, you know, because we had a people that always loved to give our friends and neighbours a great send-off, you know. I suppose, I don't think any other country does it as well as we do, you know, because I've been to funerals in England and New York and places like that, and not the same at all, you know, not the same at all. Anyway, that's that. Yeah.
Was it interesting? I know it mightn't compensate, but it's still all the same. The use of technology, where people could actually tune in on their mobile phone or their laptop.
Yeah, the technology was brilliant, like.
That was a help.
Oh, absolutely. There was a group of us that we had a question time every Wednesday night on Zoom. I was looking at my own chap at the time, because I wouldn't be very au fait with all the workings of these old things, but he kept me online. But we enjoyed the crack on a Wednesday night. I think there were 7 or 8 of us, and we'd have the old quiz you'd have a pint with the lads, like, you know, a can or something like that, but that's all you could do. It's not to say it, but we enjoyed the quizzes. And if you won the quiz, you had to set the questions for the next one, and so on. You know, it was very good. I think there was 8 or 9 of us in the kind of a group that you'd always have 6 or 7 that would be there on a Wednesday night was our night. And it was very, 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 very enjoyable, you know. It passed. You'd look forward to it. It was something to look forward to during the week. Yeah, that was it. And then we did a little bit of when the lads, the grandchildren weren't in school. We did a little bit of work with them. We did a little bit of Irish. We did a little bit of Irish with them or whatever like that, you know, so that they wouldn't fall too far behind at the Gaeilge. And we don't know whether they enjoyed it or not, or whether they learned anything, but at least it gave us a chance to talk to them as well, you know, which was good. Like, that kept us in touch in a way, but it's not the same thing. Like, you know, you're there and they're across, you're looking at them, but they're not there basically, if you know what I mean. It's the same like with the young fellow out in Australia. Like, we Zoom him every couple of times a week, Zoom call him every couple. But you know, he's here as you can see him or whatever it is, you know, which is good. But it was like we had a family event there. We thought he'd be able to come home, but he couldn't come home for us again. Like that was something that we missed, and it would have been, you know, it would have been lovely to have had him home. But sure, that's Australia was very well locked down, you know, so he was tied up there, so he couldn't get home. So these are the things that happened during COVID, you know, during lockdown. People can't get to, as we said, to social events in the family, or to, as we said earlier on about the funeral, you can't get to the funerals. And the social events are important to a person's life, you know, they mark out a specific areas. Like Brian wasn't able to get home for our anniversary, we had our 50th anniversary there during the last year, and he wasn't able to get home for that, which is a big, you know, big disappointment to us. So that's...
And did even moments during that whole year, in some ways, has the last been too, looking back, is it very clear or is it a blur? Can you remember it well? What do you remember? Or have you forgotten about it?
Oh God, I haven't forgotten. I'd like to put it to... I remember some things that I said there, not being able to do things that you would normally do. I would remember going home with the big loss to me. Like I loved going to Kerry, like that was, because I've been out, you know, it's part of what I am, or who I am, I suppose. And that was a big loss. And the big loss, as I said, not to be able to meet your family as you know, except on Zoom or something like that. There was no real, you know, you must be able to give the lads go to their games, go to whatever they were doing, you know. You couldn't, they weren't having any games at the time, but you couldn't pick them, you know, hug them or do anything like that, you know. That was a big, you know, that was a big thing, like, you know. Grandchildren are so, you know, they're so loving that these are the things that you do miss, you know. You do miss those.
Is there anything you think we've learned from these 2 years? What can we take from it at all?
That we're so dependent on each other, I'd say. That we're so dependent. And I think, what can we take from it? I think that one of the things that we can take from it is that the Irish people proved that they were up to the task of looking after themselves, doing what was asked of them. They were, and in a sense, I suppose the word I'd say, they were real neighbours, if you know what I mean. They all looked after each other. They looked out, you know, people looked after people that were on their own. They visited them, they talked through the window or whatever it was, brought food to them. What, you know, and the Irish people are still a nation of you know, very, very, very friendly people, very good people that look after not only themselves but their neighbours as well, especially people that are that have a bit of a difficulty, you know, poorer people maybe. And, you know, I think the Irish people are very good, and that's, you know, and that was one of the things I admired about people during the, you know, you'd see it there on the television at night time, the people that visited neighbours and just spoke to them through windows, go to nursing homes and having to speak to you know, and they did that, and it's, you know, that must have been terrible to have to speak to one of your loved ones through a window that you couldn't get in, and, you know, and the Irish people showed a great resilience, I think, in the face of COVID.